Pranam, Partho.
Pranam, Kunal.
So, Partho, among various books that you've written, various content you've shared over this podcast and in many other forms, I had the privilege of reading something that you wrote recently on Atma Gyan.
Yes, it's a series of dialogues on self-realization, yes.
Yeah, so very few human beings get to this curiosity and follow the process and the journey to try and understand, in order to understand who they are, what is the self, and everything that revolves around it. So would love to maybe hear from you first. What is this series of dialogue that you've written about? What is it trying to convey, and what is the core content in it?
Okay, so you've read it. This is four dialogues between actually a couple, a husband and wife in the Upanishadic tradition. And the wife is a seeker. And the teacher, the guru, is also the husband. So it's sort of modeled on several Upanishadic dialogues between husband and wife who share this journey to self-realization. The Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad being a very well-known example of this, where Yajnavalkya shares his innermost journey and his highest realizations with his wife. So it's similar. So obviously the question which triggers this dialogue is everyone says that Atma Gyan, realization of the self, is not something that can be attained by thought. It's not attainable by the mind, and it cannot be explained by speech, and it cannot be understood intellectually. It's beyond all this. It's what in Vedanta we call aparoksh jnana, direct realization, experiential knowledge that comes from direct realization. So the question that triggers this whole dialogue is, if this is Atma Gyan, then how to get to it? You know, you said that it's beyond the speech and the mind. So how does one realize it? So that is where we begin, and then the dialogue leads from level to level, addressing this question of self-realization from various perspectives, and then finally bringing all the perspectives to a convergence and leading to a realization itself. So a dialogue that leads to realization. Again, as I said, it's in the Upanishadic tradition.
And such similar dialogues we've to an extent covered in like Ashtavakra Gita also, where they were debating on a
similar. Yes. So Ashtavakra Gita again is in the Upanishadic tradition, and that's a very radical dialogue too.
Okay, and coming to this Atma Gyan, so one of the dualities or classic ways of us mere mortal humans living is that we rely a lot on our senses and completely on our mind. If our mind has to mature to a level to understand that for the sake of the progress of the being, mind has to now be quietened, and one has to go beyond the mind, and mind has to allow for that to happen.
Right.
Because if mind doesn't allow, then it ends up being creating delusions. It can create myths, delusions, etc. So such dialogues for sure likely help in progression of the mind to start accepting and somewhere assimilating and absorbing these things, which eventually, hopefully, eventually leads to the mind quieting and one realizing this. So starting absorbing this with mind is not a bad start, I would think.
No, and not only is it a good start, but where else does one start? Because what we call avidya, ignorance, and this is spiritual ignorance, is a thing of the mind. Avidya is a thing of the mind. And the veil between our consciousness and that reality is a mental veil, sense and mind. So all the ignorance, all the falsehood that we talk about, the mithya that we talk about, the moho maya that we talk about, these all things of the mind. They all mental formations, projections, constructs. So we obviously begin the quest from the mind itself. If the mind understands its own errors, its own limitations, and its own projections and constructs, and it understands that it has to go beyond all that. And when I say mind here, I mean buddhi. And that too, not the practical buddhi, the higher buddhi. The buddhi that engages in such quests. No, not the transactional practical buddhi. We call it the subtler buddhi, the sukshma buddhi. So if the buddhi were to understand all this, it would be able to go beyond it and penetrate the veils, as it were, and pass beyond the ignorance, the avidya, and that's it. It's done. Once the mental veils are gone, once you've passed beyond the mind's ignorance and falsehoods and all the apparent realities it lives with all the constructs it lives with. So once it's gone beyond all that, I think the thing's done. Then it's only a question of time that the knowledge of the self would dawn. Takes some time, but yes, then it's no longer if, then it's when. I mean, how long does it take for the complete realization to happen? And that depends on the deeper purification of the buddhi, of the chitta, of the manas, of the prana.
The one has to patiently hold that state, bhav, and in time with divine's grace, one would likely...
Yeah, no. I can take you to be a real person and myself to be a real person, and our relation that would be based on that assumption that we are both real human beings with real concerns. But the fact is that as individuals, neither of us exist. And what I call myself and what you call yourself are psychological constructs based on conditionings of past experiences and all the conditionings since childhood, or perhaps even before that. And all that we have experienced, all that we have accumulated in terms of knowledge and understanding, all that makes us what we are. And these are all constructs. We can take it all apart and we can go beyond all those constructs and formations and begin to see what we truly are. Beyond our conditionings, beyond our past experiences and knowledge, beyond all that we have put together as personality. So it is this what I am talking about. When buddhi, the higher or subtler intelligence, has to begin to see through all that appears to us, So the personality, what we call naam roop, and it's a construct. And the buddhi takes this construct to be reality. So it's the buddhi that must understand that this is not reality, it's a construct. So simple as that.
And as you've mentioned in the dialogue, I think very carefully and subtly worded, that once you go beyond this mind, beyond thought, beyond speech, then is it the self that is realizing the self?
Yeah.
Right? So it was very beautifully worded. I recall reading that. So could you elaborate on that or talk about that a bit?
Yeah, I think what I was writing about was the fact that the self cannot be realized.
Correct.
By the mind.
Yeah.
Simply because the mind is itself a part of the self.
Yes.
It's like a wave that is part of the sea. So the wave cannot grasp the sea. So there you have the whole Vedantic question. Who realizes whom?
Yeah.
Yes, the mind, the buddhi can deconstruct the whole mechanism of the self and the world. The whole self and world construct, all that can be taken apart by the buddhi. And the buddhi can then be liberated from all its beliefs, conditionings, knowledge. It can become empty in a sense. And the moment that happens, when the buddhi is now cleaned out, then it begins to reflect the self. So who realizes whom? It's the buddhi that realizes. I mean, when we use the word realize, I realize something, I come to know something. It's the buddhi that is realizing, it's coming to the knowledge. But here the buddhi is not coming to anything. The buddhi is just falling apart. The mind is just falling apart. And the buddhi, once it's free from its activities, its movements, then it just becomes what it actually always is, pure awareness. And once the buddhi is quietened, when the activities of the buddhi cease, the movements of the buddhi cease, then what remains is pure awareness. And this pure awareness is what reflects the self to itself.
Yeah, I think intellectually...
So it's like you're standing in front of a mirror and you're seeing your own reflection.
Yeah.
Now that mirror is buddhi.
It has to be clean.
It's reflecting you back to yourself and your formation in the mirror. But if and this is an analogy, of course, but the mirror, which is a metaphor for the buddhi, if you remove the mirror, then what remains is you. So this you is the awareness.
Yeah, and another analogy is also that sea would not realize it's sea. It is the sea. It is everything, in some sense. or you cannot.
The wave will not realize the wave may not even know that it's part of the sea. It's rising in the sea and falling back into the sea because it's so convinced with the fact that it is an entity called the wave.
Yeah.
And then it's looking at all these other waves like itself, and it feels that there are so many waves, so many entities. But it's the purified buddhi that can begin to understand that all these waves, including itself, is just the water of the sea. It's just sea rising in itself and falling back in itself. The moment the purified buddhi does that, he realizes, again, if we take the metaphor of the wave and the ocean, once the purified buddhi realizes that the wave by itself doesn't exist, what exists is the sea, and the wave is a formation in the sea, then its identification with its own shape and movement, nam rupa, it breaks. And it realizes it is the sea. So what happens then is does the wave realize it is the sea, or does it just see, it's difficult to talk about all these things. I mean, does it just realize it's always been sea? Because really it has never been the wave. It's always been the sea, always will be the sea. It just realizes that, hey, you know what, I am the sea. I may still have the shape of a wave. I may still have the movement of a wave, the akar and gati of a wave, but I don't exist as wave. I am the sea. And then the question can be, can a wave be the sea? But the wave is already the sea. But the wave in its formation obviously cannot be the sea. So it has to fall back into the sea for it to become the sea. Self-realization, you know, it's too abstract to talk in plain language. We have to engage with metaphors and
and as you said, it's
symbolism,
beyond thought, beyond
poetry,
words.
Yes.
Yeah.
So even like when you ask and when I talk about it, I find it difficult to,
Yeah.
you know, put it in so many words, which is why perhaps one needs to write. Because when one is writing, then one is not addressing a mind, then one can just write it as it is.
And it's similar to, I mean, another thought's coming to me that just like we don't realize it, that we can never see our own eyes.
You can never see, the vision that's looking out through your eyes. That vision cannot see itself. Yes, you're right.
Now, it is similar like the self.
Yes.
Realizing the self will be, like you said, even in the mirror analogy, it's a reflection of the self that it sees, right? And without it, realizing that my eyes, just for me to, paraphrasing the word slightly, for me to see that my eyes cannot see themselves is a similar analogy how the self would be realizing the self. Because
except that maybe you can see the eyes in reflection,
but it's reflection.
But you cannot see
the self and
the gaze, the vision itself.
Correct.
Yes, you're right.
It's very similar to seeing.
It's a question of objective knowledge,
subjective knowledge.
To know anything at all, there has to be the knower, the subject knower, and the object of knowledge, the known. So the knower and the known. And the process is between these two is knowledge. That's what we call knowledge. So the observer and the observed, and the observation. But that which is observing, who's there to observe that?
Cannot be observed. Yeah.
So that's where the whole...
Same with the eyes that are seeing, who's seeing the eyes? So
yes.
In that way, it's a similar analogy which...
So who's seeing the seeing itself?
And that's a quest of classic all Vedantic inquiries and many other spiritual inquiries.
This is more or less pure Vedanta. So if you go to Vedanta, I mean, you start with the understanding that the knower cannot be known. You can know the entire universe, because it's all outside of you. But how can you know the knower? You are the knower. And you cannot objectify yourself to yourself. So how will you know the knower? So Vedanta begins with that paradox. And one has to go very deep within consciousness itself to be able to resolve this paradox. What is this knowledge that cannot be objectified? Because obviously, when you're talking about knowledge of the self, you're not talking about knowledge of the other.
No duality,
Knowledge of the self cannot be knowledge of the other. So if you're talking about knowledge of the self, then who's the knower? The self is the knower. Then who's the known? The self is the known. So that's where it becomes very abstract and very subtle.
I think it's pretty much like our whole conversation, because somebody who's not yet read the dialogues that you've written, put together, 20 pages, which may in due course come out in some shape or form. This whole conversation is fairly abstract. It's
Yes, it is.
But it is a classic Vedantic inquiry, and
Yes.
you've put it forward very beautifully.
And I wasn't thinking of publishing it.
Yeah.
Certain things you cannot, maybe you can.
Yeah.
I mean, we have Ashtavakra Gita.
Sure. We have Somewhere Among the Stars. So, yeah. Just one last question before we conclude this, and this may be for a very limited private audience who know us and know you for sure. So the Partho who existed years, decades ago, before this realization, and the Partho that is now, once gets this self-realization, Atma Gyan, knowledge of the self, changes drastically from the classic way of living in the world. A lot of things would change dramatically for such a person, right? I mean, knowing the self, or understanding even that self, touching even that self, you cannot not know it anymore, and the whole world, your worldview would change drastically. Almost that to an extent. Yeah.
Maybe something simpler, Kunal. Once you touch the self, and I always maintain that realization of the self is a not one-time event.
Of course.
It spreads. So,
Yeah.
I often say it's like stepping into the ocean. So once you touch the self, you have stepped into the ocean, but then there's the whole ocean there.
The infinite ocean you can go into.
Infinite, shoreless ocean. Yeah. So you just have to keep going deeper and deeper within. So once you've touched the self, the world is no longer real for you. You see it as it is, a construct of consciousness. So the question of living in the construct of a consciousness is very different from the question of living in a real world.
Yes.
So when we talk about, let's say, how to live in a real world, it's a real, serious question.
Yeah.
But if I were to ask you, how do you live in what you know to be the construct of a consciousness?
Yeah. Like a dream.
Or the construct of consciousness, because the world is a construct of consciousness. It's like you suddenly realize it's a dream or a play. Once we talked about that metaphor too. And then how do you live? So the question is no longer real for you. I mean, how does it matter how you live? You're not going to how to say this? They're not real people then.
Yeah, you'll engage not as much. Your engagement would be very little.
Inwardly, you don't engage at all.
It's almost
Outwardly, the movements go on. There's a gati of the universe. I call it the gati of Jagat. Jagat itself is gati.
Yeah.
That which moves. So there's a gati of this universe we are living in, a gati of prakriti, gati of jagat, which continues by itself. There's a momentum, a karmic momentum in every gati, and that continues by itself. But there's no self behind it. There's no self behind gati. And there is no self behind akar. So it's how does one say this? There's no self. There's a sense of individuality, but that sense of individuality is an attribute of consciousness itself. All consciousness is self-consciousness. The moment you close your eyes and you become aware that you are, there's awareness that you are. Not you're Kunal or you're this and you're that, just the fact that you are. If you concentrate on that, you will immediately realize that this awareness is self-awareness. This awareness that there is a being, there is a self, but there's not an individual personal self at all. It is actually awareness which is aware of itself. So instead of saying awareness aware of itself, we say self-awareness. And that self-awareness, deep down in us, we mistake for an individual self. There is no such thing as individual self at all. So you said a person, a Partho, before he realizes Partho. So what happens is when realization is like, the breaking of day, the first sunlight and everything starts lighting up. And the first thing you realize is there never was a Partho, there never was a Kunal. And, it was just a reflection of self-awareness. And the Nam Roop is gone. Then what you are is self-awareness. And self-awareness being reflected to itself. And that is what you live, finally.
I'm thinking of another simpler analogy probably, which is that imagine how we dream today. And when we wake up, if we keep taking that dream seriously. And once we realize that it was a dream, we just let it be. Dream is a dream. When we wake up, we just forget it, get over it. In a similar way,
and you
self-realization.
cannot be attached to a dream.
Yes, no attachment, no engagement beyond.
It cannot be attached. The dream's gone. What will be attached to?
But during the dream we are in it, we play our part. We do whatever is.
Yes, because
So
while you're dreaming, it's real.
in similar way, even after self-realization in some sense, and I'm just putting an intellectual analogy, that in the world you continue playing just like you play in the dream, outwardly. But inwardly, you have a clearer understanding that it's a dream. It's not real. And that is the realization you've got. Because otherwise you were inwardly also taking it seriously before the realization. Just an analogy, I'm not sure if it fits fully.
It gives you an idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because when you wake up from a dream, the dream's not there anymore. It's gone. So what role will you play in the dream? There is no dream after that.
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say is, I guess, the self-realization is waking up from the dream of this life. Inwardly for sure, and outwardly you look at it like a dream. Just that's the analogy, but yeah, I mean, I guess.
I mean, analogies have their own limitations, so yes, fine. At the end of the day, we just accept limitations of all analogies and metaphors. Because nothing in language can express the reality of the self.
It is the biggest truth, biggest knowledge we'll ever come to.
Yeah, I say it's the only knowledge. All other knowledge is illusory. You think you know it. You believe you know something, but if you really look very carefully at what you know, you find that you don't really know. You just know the description of a thing. but you don't know the thing in itself. Which thing do we really know in itself?
Yeah. I think Richard Feynman put it beautifully that we know a bunch of things with a bunch of certainty, but nothing we know for sure.
Yes, I mean, physics states that so vividly and beautifully. That there's nothing that we are certain of, nothing can be known for sure. Because then there are multiple layers of what I would call apparent knowing. In Vedanta, we call it mithya. Mithya is not that which it doesn't exist.
It's an order of reality.
I mean, it exists.
Yeah.
In an order of reality. For instance, what exists in a dream is real in the dream. But outside the dream is not real. But while the dream was on, it was real. So something that appeared to be real, but it was not real. This is the famous metaphor that the Vedantis give is the serpent and the rope. So when you see a rope in darkness, you suddenly feel it's a snake, but it's not really a snake. But then you need the illumination to know it's a rope.
Was the snake ever there or not?
Yes. So
It was in your mind. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. Hope we'll all wake up from this dream one day.
Again, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're dreaming, you're dreaming. I mean, in the dream, it doesn't matter if you wake up or not. And once you're awakened, then you're awakened. But the thing is, being awakened. What you were using the phrase "being awakened" is our reality. It's not that one day Kunal will wake up. Deep within Kunal is already awakened, but he's identified with the dream.
The layers and the dualities would fall apart, as you say in the write-up
It's
also.
just the layers of identification will simply fall apart.
Sure. Great. Thanks for the conversation, Patho.
Thank you.
Fun as always.
Thanks.
Yeah.